You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of truth, a dimension of freedom, a dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
That's right, everybody. Welcome to your island of sanity in a sea of insanity. This is the Capitalist Corner. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and the vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz, who also hosts his own show, a much-needed commodity in such a crazy, irrational world that we live in. The rational egoist, the type of ethics that we are trying to bring to the world, rational egoism, folks. Through Ayn Rand, of course, who originated it, but we are passing the torch on to the next generation. Michael, what do you have to say about your show? What's going on now?
Well, tomorrow, I'm hoping to get the episode up. We did an interview about the influence that victim persona has on the acceptance of conspiracy theories. And the audience here may remember we actually discussed that on this show. And as I often do, I reach out to the authors of the articles that we do and try to get them on here. So it'll be great. Hopefully tomorrow.
Fantastic, folks. Well, happy Thursday to you guys, first of all. And also, I have to give our usual disclaimer. We are not affiliated with the American Capitalist Party. We are two capitalists who belong to and head the American Capitalist Party, but our opinions here are exclusively our own. If you want to know the policies of the American Capitalist Party, go to americancapitalistsparty.org, donate, join up, become a card-carrying member of the Capitalist Party, and be a part of the change, folks. Be a part of the future. So, I think the biggest news that we're going to be talking about today, and that might take up the majority of our time, is what happened to Jimmy Kimmel yesterday. It's taken a big portion of the news cycle, and of course, the right wing is justifying their cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel. But this goes more than just a social cancellation, folks. This goes far beyond, in many respects, what the left was doing, which was insidious in its own right? Canceling people or getting corporations to fire people for their opinions. It was ugly. It was certainly disgusting. But the corporations had the freedom to maneuver one way or the other. They could have rejected the public outcry, which was usually just a few demented souls, but they were loud enough and had enough stock accounts to make it appear that they were mobs that were probably a market and scared corporations into sometimes firing folks for inappropriate off-color jokes or something politically incorrect that they had said. This is far more insidious, folks, because what's happening now is the government is using its power and authority over the media to manipulate them to do its bidding. In this case, we have ABC, who's already been sued by Trump and actually had to settle for $16 million, paying off a healthy sum for Trump's presidential library. And I'm assuming now with his $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times, he's assuming a similar settlement so that he could build another floor to his library. This is the preemption or temporary or unlimited suspension of Jimmy Kimmel for some comments that he made respecting the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, of course, the Fox News media said that he was degrading or insulting Charlie Kirk, making fun of him, something like that. Not at all what happened. If you listen to the joke, it's not really what happened at all. They're also claiming that really he only had 1.7 million viewers, and it was a financial decision on the part of ABC. Well, it was certainly a financial decision on the part of some of the affiliates of ABC who decided to drop him because they're in a merger agreement. And Brendan Carr, who is, I guess, he's our latest authoritarian in the Trump administration, has been threatening media organizations with, of course, suspending their licenses and or fining them for doing things that aren't in the community interest. Now, Michael, this tweet that you sent me inspired me to retweet it with some comments that do not represent the American Capitalist Party, but I certainly think they represent the thoughts of most capitalists out there. This tweet comes from Republicans Against Trump, and it says Trump FCC Chair Brendan Carr threatens ABC and Disney over Jimmy Kimmel's Charlie Kirk comments. Quote, "We can do this the easy way or the hard way." So the government always does things. There's the implicit threat of the gun behind it, folks. Don't ever think that the government is benevolent when it's telling you to do something. You have to do it, or there is a real risk to your life and limb and property. There's actions we can take on licensing, on licensed broadcasters. It's long past time that Comcast and Disney say, quote, "We are not going to run Kimmel anymore because we licensed broadcasters are running the possibility of fines and or license revocation from the FCC." This is a clear violation of the First Amendment. This is a clear government censorship of a network that is not friendly to the administration, and the administration giving the chilling message that if you are not friendly to us, because we are now our administration's opinions are now the public interest. If you are not serving that public interest, you are now subject to fines and or cancellations. Michael, what do you have to say about this horror show?
Interestingly, in 2019, Brendan Carr said that the FCC cannot regulate speech in the name of the public interest. So he's surprised, done a 180 on that. I'm really sick to my stomach, to be perfectly honest with you. And I mean physically, I don't feel well. Like, this is really, really awful stuff. They are really pushing things here with this administration. And what really I find disheartening is the amount of people that are defending it. People that call themselves objectivists are defending it. I've seen people call themselves a libertarian website defending it. It's reprehensible. It was a clear threat issued from the federal government to a company that's in the process of, with a pending merger. And the chilling effect, it goes beyond just here, because now the message is clearly set, right? Sent. You are not going to say stuff that we don't like, that we don't want to hear. And, a friend of mine, I've been the person who has said, I'm not going to lose friends over politics. But this is getting to be beyond politics. This is gross, right? So the other day, a friend of mine that I've known for 40 years posts, with Charlie Kirk's shooting, we are losing our constitutional rights. And he says, if you disagree with me, defriend me. Okay. I didn't defriend them, whatever. But today, when I posted this, he comes in and he says, oh, at least he didn't get shot. And I said, well, wait a second. Weren't you the guy that just days ago talked about how important the Constitution is to you, that you're willing to lose friends, but now you don't care? And he says, well, I don't consider this a constitutional issue. And I kind of went sick on him. I basically told him, I said, first of all, dude, it's irrelevant what you consider to be about the Constitution. I said, secondly, next to nothing about this document. I said, you don't understand the issues even that you're commenting on. I said, you said you were willing to lose friends over something you don't understand. I told them, well, let me tell you something, dude. I'm willing to lose friends over something about which I am crystal clear. And I don't know. I don't know how you defend this. My cousin chimed in and said it's an FCC something. The degree to which these people will go to defend the Trump administration had me actually post a question this morning, Mark, that, why won't MAGA just come out and admit that their only guiding principle is hatred for the left? Because if they do that, then we can argue, right? Is that appropriate? Is that the standard to go by? What are you going to replace it with? Should we be trying something better? Now, if I argue with the left, I know what I'm arguing against, right? Wherever they go on the spectrum, you could take me with a full-fledged Marxist. I know the principles they're guided by. Obama, he had policy, the prescriptions he put out there. I could argue them about. But these people shift from day to day on what they believe, on what's important. As long as it goes after the people that they don't like, it's okay. But the dumb bastards, what they don't get, and this is pure pragmatism I'm talking about. You don't even have to be principled to understand this. Eventually, a Democrat's going to get in office, and they're going to do the same thing. But then it's going to be you. And you know what's going to happen then? We're going to see all of them crying all over the place about how their freedoms are being taken away. The Constitution's being violated. What about my free speech? And you know what I'm going to tell them at that point, Mark? Fuck you. I don't care. Because I will fight for freedom of speech at all times and for anybody to speak. But if you are a fair weather friend who's only interested in punishing people you don't like, go to hell.
I think it's fair to say, folks, that we here as capitalists are free speech absolutists. Capitalism is the only system out there that is 100% free choice between consenting adults. It is all about your capacity to choose and leaving you free to choose. If you don't like Jimmy Kimmel, you do not have to watch Jimmy Kimmel. You do not need a bureaucrat to cancel him or to force the network into some kind of circumstance that they feel will harm them and to therefore do their bidding. You can turn off the station. I've been on Jimmy Kimmel. I happen to like the guy. I don't agree with his politics. I don't really watch Jimmy Kimmel. But it's moments like this that will probably make me go watch him on whatever other medium will accept him from this point forward, just to say fuck you to the current administration for what they are doing, and another fuck you to the MAGA movement, who is so freaking hypocritical and lacks the enough introspection to see that they are doing the very same things the left has done in the past, only more egregiously and more in the open. At least the left had the capacity to understand that they were doing something wrong and tried to couch it in legalese. There is nothing in this administration that is trying to couch it in legalese. They are outright admitting that it's whim. Hold on, I have to save my dog, and then I have
okay. So Jim Valiant said the left have already done this. Jim, I'm going to beg to differ with you on this. Not that the left hasn't been in favor of rights violations all along. I agree. But this is a clear escalation. This is an escalation of rights violations. Now, is it true that we've seen escalations in the past where the left escalates, right escalates? Of course. But this is going beyond, unless you've got specific details. The only thing that I can think of is them wanting to hold reporters, arrest reporters for not leaking sources. But Trump's not opposed to that. So when they did that, that wouldn't be something he's not in favor of. I am not going to sit here and defend the left, but to come out and say, yeah, but the left did it or any such thing, I just don't think that it's an accurate statement at this point in time.
Well, I do think it's an accurate statement, not to take sides with James against you. I know that's
no. What I'm asking, you think that you're going to, Mark, I got a question then. And
it's not a whataboutism, though.
No. I'm granting. I want to know, though. I want to know, do you think that the left, and I'm talking about in the last 25 years, right, has done anything this egregious when it comes to the First Amendment?
Okay, first of all, the creation of the FCC was from the left, and the purpose of the FCC was to eliminate political competition from Roosevelt. He wanted to pass the New Deal, so they created the FCC to parcel out, of course, licenses, ostensibly because of this new property issue with respect to frequencies in radio, but they used that as a cudgel against people who were against the New Deal, withholding licenses, fining them for not going along with the new political regime. So yes, he started this, but and as awful as that is, what we have today I don't know that any of that was in the public sphere, right? Because of the lack of information, because people got their information only through newspapers, very limited sources. Today we have access to so much information. We know what these people are doing, to a greater extent than we did in the 1930s and the 1940s. And I don't know of any overt threat from an FCC official on the left in my memory, in my lifetime, where they threatened licenses and they threatened fines because of speech they disagreed with. Now, that's true. In my lifetime, I don't remember the left doing anything of the sort. In fact,
see, I agree with you. I just want to be on the record. I agree with what you're saying. My only point is that, look, in the 50s, there were 90% tax rates, the highest rate, right? But if somebody were to introduce that today, I would see that as a clear escalation of property rights violations. And I wouldn't then say, yeah, but they did it in the 60s. I'm talking about, in modern times. By modern times, that's why I said the last 25 years.
Wait, but James Valiant does bring up a great point, which I, have blanked out because it was so horrific. The Biden administration did collude with social media organizations to prohibit certain news from going out there. And when I say collude,
and so did Trump. Hold on, and so did Trump before them.
But you were talking exclusively about the left. We know Trump does this. This is
what I'm saying is this is an escalation. That's the problem. I'm not denying that they did this. And I was opposed to it then, by the way. I was opposed to Biden doing it.
Potentially, yes. But when the FBI is telling you or some federal bureau is telling you that you need to follow our prescriptions or else there's no real collusion going on. I say collusion. It's a one-way street. It's a one-way relationship. You're trying to protect your franchise and your property, so you're doing what the feds are telling you to do. It's unfortunate. I don't think it's as brazen as this, where you have the chairman of the FCC saying this, folks. Broadcast media have the privilege. Now, when a government official talks about an American citizen having a privilege, especially with respect to airing any kind of opinion, your spidey senses should be tingling fully, folks, because it's not a privilege to speak your mind. It's not a privilege to tell an off-color joke. It is your right to do that. It is your right as an American citizen that recognizes that freedom of speech is the foundation of a rational society. It's the foundation stone of a rational society. It's not a privilege. So when somebody's telling us it's a privilege, they are already making the assertion, implied, that whatever you do comes by permission of the government of the United States. This is not so. Jimmy Kimmel does not tell jokes by the permission of the United States government. ABC does not air programs by the permission of the United States government. And here's the moral reasoning behind it, folks, which is why altruism needs to be defeated at its core. He says it straight out here. Our airwaves, in turn, they are required by law to operate in the public interest. They are required by law to operate in the public interest. Folks, a collectivist term is amorphous and it's a non-meaningful term. There is no such thing as the public interest, folks, just like there's no such thing as community interests. There are only your interests and my interests. That's all that exists. A community is an abstract entity. A public is an abstract entity. And when you say they must act for the public interest, you are in essence saying what we define as the public interest. So then the metric of the government becomes the standard by which everyone must operate by. That is tyranny, folks. That is tyranny. And this guy, Brendan Carr, needs to go, as does the FCC. The FCC should have gone a long time ago. But of course, it's not one of the government agencies Trump was focusing on because, as you said, Michael, their standard of evaluating good or bad is whether or not it contradicts what the left wants. And so they'll go after the EPA, which is certainly justified. I think the EPA should have been gutted a long time ago, but mainly not because of the principle that the regulatory power of the EPA has overextended itself, has created deep scarcity in housing. It's creating scarcity in energy. It's deindustrializing America and putting lives of American human beings at risk. Not because of that principle, not from the human thriving principle, but from the principle that the left sucks. This is one of their This is one of their golden calves, and we're going to melt it down. This is atrocious, folks, and it should make any diehard objectivist lover of Trump look. Even if if you think this is a great revenge fuck, that he is finally giving these people what they deserve in all of their orifices, it will not redound well in the future, folks, because every expansion of power has reverberations in the future. As Michael said, this will come back to hurt you. Bonnie says, does MAGA only care about hating the left, or do they at base want the same thing as the left? Acceptance of irrationality, the power to force their whims on others for an alleged public good. I mean, I say it's both, Michael. What do you think?
I see where she's coming from. The problem is, like somebody posted today, no, what MAGA wants are clean streets. And they went through this laundry list of reduced crime, all kinds of stuff that everybody wants, or at least most people want, left or right. The problem is, what do you think is going to get it for you, right? So the people on the right, when I started following politics, were all for free trade, except for the Buchananites, but they were like a fringe element within the Republicans, right? Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity.
Are they now called the paleo conservatives? Is
that's one of them, but it's also have been incorporated into MAGA. So now they defend tariffs. So they've just switched what they were for. So that's just one instance. So it's hard for me to say that they want their whims so that they can get what they want, because even the things that they say they want, they won't get by these means. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying? I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Of course.
So it seems to be that the hatred for the left is the main motivator, because they will switch their positions in order to attack the left.
Agreed. Yeah, that's what we have are people who are not interested in principle. They're not guided by principle. They're certainly guided by their emotions. And their emotions right now are directed at a group that has marginalized them for a couple of decades now and dominated the culture. And they're mad. And I get it. I understand you're mad. You're mad that the left has dominated the culture. Their narratives are now have now been educating generations upon generations of people. But the solution is not clampdowns and irrationality and following the whims of a man who has no principle at all. The solution is rational discourse. The solution is a return to constitutional principles. The solution is to get back to something and also look forward to something, so we can embrace what the founders gave us, but with our new knowledge, our awareness that Rand helped give us, that many great thinkers since Rand and previous to Rand have given us, to advance the real progressive, the real liberal ideals out there. This can happen, and this can be a solution. It can be a solution to clean streets. It can be a solution to crime. Constitutional carry could be a solution to crime, folks. Decriminalizing certain acts, and I'm not talking about the way in which the left does it, which is where they're trying to decriminalize misdemeanors, and they decriminalize theft up to $1,000, which incentivizes more of it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about decriminalizing voluntary interactions between people who, if there is a victim involved, it's only the person himself and nobody else. There's no violence involved in the exchange, and there's nobody being hurt in the exchange. They don't deserve to be criminalized. And that amounts to a high percentage of the people who are in prison right now, being made worse probably by being in prison. Not made better, but made worse.
So Mark, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were going to move on to the next story.
That would solve a lot of problems, Michael, from the gang problems, which get their incentives from selling drugs. They take over neighborhoods in order to sell drugs. The cartel problems, which have been manufactured and created by the American government. The fentanyl crisis, which is from scheduling drugs in such a way that people in pain and people who need them cannot get those drugs anymore. So they turn to the street and they face all the risks of a black market and all the violence and potential violence of a black market, which this administration is upping the ante with its military incursions into the Caribbean against the Tren de Aragua gang, which is characterized as a terrorist organization. in order to excuse the use of the military in this ridiculous war on drugs. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay. It's interesting. You bring up the Constitution, and I posted today that never in my life did I think that being a constitutional originalist would put me at odds with so many people who identify as conservatives or get me called the leftist as often as it has. Now, Race Jacobson says the M2 Christian conservative right has become the new mainstream, whereas it was fringe before. He's, of course, referencing Leonard Peikoff's book, The Dim Hypothesis. I'm going to disagree with you slightly, Race. I actually think that the culture that we have today that's exemplified by the MAGA movement is more of a disintegration, meaning when you integration, misintegration, disintegration. I think that it's about destruction. I think that a lot of it can actually be traced to the teachings of the left in academia. There's no truth, there's no absolutes, there's no facts. It's all just a matter of convention. There's no right and wrong. All those concepts coming out of the left, that ultimately served sort of nihilism. And I think that is really what we're seeing in real time, is just a desire to break down, much as with the French Revolution, where it was just about ripping down the existing order, but there was nothing rational to replace it with. There was no system of rights that they were looking to implement. And I think that is largely what we're seeing today. Time will tell. I mean, we're in the middle of it, and it's often hard to diagnose something while you're in it. But that's what I see.
Well, I mean, the good news about the disintegrated personality types is that they end up eating their own, and Robespierre became a victim of his own movement. Unfortunately, they do a lot of damage before self-consumption. I sort of am splitting the difference with you, Michael, because I think MAGA movement is definitely a D, but it's incorporating some M's in there, some M2s.
Oh, I agree with that, Mark. I agree with you there.
And that's giving it sort of its strength in a way, because they're misintegrated, but they're integrated enough to be organized, and like a Stephen Miller type he's a misintegrated nut. But he's organized enough to give form to a movement, to make it socially palatable to enough people, and to push it ahead with rhetoric. And that's sort of scary. And that's what makes me sort of understand your own Brooks' fear of the right over the left, because the disintegrated folks, they just sort of They die in chaos, but the misintegrated ones can do a great deal of damage before they end up dying of suicide or the contradictions within their own value system.
I actually I agree. And as Ray says that Trump is surrounded by the misintegrators.
Yes,
and to an extent, I would agree. I think there's the element within MAGA that's about destruction and hate. And I think there's something within there that we might call maybe usurpers, taggers on or hangers on with Trump. I think J.D. Vance would represent that sort of M2 misintegration, religious thing. And I think Stephen Miller would fit there.
Yeah. I agree with you. Vance is sort of a scary guy for me. And we could talk about that at some other time. I just want to read the title of this article you sent me from Fox News, because I didn't read the article itself, because I thought the title was wrong. Unless you know something I don't, Michael, or if somebody in the audience knows something I don't. Here's what it says. FCC Chair Brendan Carr defends ABC affiliates pulling Jimmy Kimmel show after monologue mocking Charlie Kirk. Now, I don't recall him mocking Charlie Kirk. If there's somebody in the audience that could tell me, because I've only seen snippets of it, but the snippets that I've seen were not mocking him.
No,
it was him saying the right is trying super hard to prove that the guy who killed him isn't one of them, basically.
That's what I know. I haven't heard him say anything mocking, but to be fair, I don't watch Jimmy Kimmel. I didn't go beyond the quote that you just referred to, where he basically said that MAGA is going out of its way to try to prove this guy isn't one of them. I didn't see it mocking, but I do know that this Carr guy, I went to his Twitter page today, X page, whatever. And he's praising them. And Trump, of course, praised them. Trump is out there saying Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers should be next.
Yes, this is chilling. Why aren't people more freaked out about this?
I think a lot of people are.
This guy is, I mean, a lot of people. I wonder, are a lot of people?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, then
the problem is, let me just tell you, here's part of the problem.
Because I had a discussion with a friend of mine who's been a friend of mine for 40 years. He's a MAGA. He's one of these Trump derangement syndrome guys on the right. And I was, he had just had surgery, so I shouldn't have been yelling at him the way I was. But I was like, well, are you going to admit that this is insane? And he can't. He keeps coming up with excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse why it's okay. It's like Trump is a messianic figure to these people, and he can do no wrong because his ends justify the means, and his ends are the destruction of the left. God, this is like one massive revenge fuck. But tell me, please, that there are more people who are insanely upset about this.
So there are a lot of people that are insanely upset. There's a lot of people that actually scare me a little bit, are the people that don't pay attention, that think that their lives will always just go along smoothly. They can just go home, make dinner for the kids, watch television, laugh with the spouse, whatever. I don't pay attention to politics, that kind of thing. And they just assume things will stay the same. There was a guy that worked in the prison who used to say, well, you know what? He said, when stuff starts going wrong in the world, I just go to my garage, I work on my car, and I know everything's going to work out. Of course, what the idiot didn't grasp is that it may work out because there's other people who aren't taking your perspective, who aren't doing that. But I do think there's a lot of people, they just, bread and circus. I just keep going along with the daily routine life and not pay attention. And then there's the people that are defending it. And I just can't get it. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of things that these people have done and said where even though I disagreed vehemently, I might be able to say, okay, this is not one of them. This is so easy to see, so easy to get. There were objectivists today talking about if there was a threat, that would be a big deal. And I said, what do you mean if there was a threat? And I don't know if they just didn't take the FCC guys' words as a threat or if they were unaware of it. But either
Michael,
way,
there's an implied threat when the government tells you to do something. It is a threat.
Of course.
It's a threat because they have the power of force behind them. They have monopoly force power. You can't say no to them. Or you can, but you'll go to jail or you'll pay exorbitant fines. They'll hound you legally until you're bankrupt because they can. They have unlimited resources to do that kind of stuff. This is chilling, man. And it should scare everybody. Look, in a perfect society, which I would say is a capitalist society, and when I say perfect, I don't mean that everybody is going to be well off like a Garden of Eden. Everybody's going to have value supplied to them. That is not perfect in my mind. Perfect means perfect liberty in the sense that the state protects you from bad guys. Your life is your own. What you do with it, the potential that you realize to the extent that you do, is entirely your own. Now, in that kind of world, politics would mean shit. You wouldn't have to worry about who's being elected because their only job is to protect individual rights, which means the legislature is probably in session a very short amount of time because they might have to deal with some new property issues because of certain technologies that are out there. But once they resolve those property issues and how to dispense them in a just manner, that's it. They wouldn't be writing omnibus bills that are 90,000 pages long that nobody reads because they wouldn't be governing every aspect of your life. So they would have zero effect on your life. Right now, folks, the legislator that you vote in office, the president that you vote in office, has an effect on your life. We live in a spoiled system democracy, which is an awful phenomenon. It means that somebody appeals to a constituency and he appeals to enough of them to get into office and then makes his term in office about feeding that constituency through political privileges and legal privileges. This is precisely what Donald Trump is doing in a more overt way than I've ever seen it in my life. This is stuff usually that Congress people do in back smoke-filled rooms, Michael. This was the stuff behind the scenes that nobody wanted to admit they did. But we have a guy now who does it out in the open for everybody to see. Political patronage. You do what I say or not. You will gain from being on my side. You will lose if you're against me. We are a constitutional republic. Yes, I know that, but we're not now. We were a constitutional.
We're supposed to be a constitutional republic.
Yes. Yeah. Is Mike busting my balls? Is that a ball busting comment? Like I don't know that.
No. I think when you said we are a spoil system democracy, that was his response. In fairness, I don't know that he has been watching the whole show or, watches every day to understand our perspective. Yes, the country was founded as a constitutional republic. That's clearly not what is happening now.
Yes, Mike, just for clarity, we know that it is a constitutional republic. That's what we want to return the government to as capitalists. Right now, it is a spoil system democracy, and it keeps pushing in that direction. First, it was the left that was pushing us in that direction, but now we have a nationalist populist right that is doing the very same thing. And all that means is that the side that gets into power gets all of the privileges and rights, and the side that's out of power is fucked. And that's precisely what they are doing now. We want a representative republic that respects the rights and protects the rights of the minority, the unpopular person, the obnoxious person. I'm sorry, you might not like them, but they deserve the protection of the United States Constitution. They deserve that.
So yes, he just got here. Mike had just arrived on the scene. Speaking of the yes, welcome, Mike Ewald. Speaking of the Constitution, I was thinking this morning about Charlie Kirk's what I've heard he said. I didn't see him say it, but but if he did, I approve. Right? Somebody's opening my garage, and of that I disapprove because they should know that I'm right above the garage, and I don't need that in my life. Okay, but anyways, Charlie Kirk said something to the effect of, "It's worth having gun deaths in order to protect the Second Amendment," something along those lines. I don't disagree. I think that freedom is inherently risky, and ultimately it makes us really safer in the long run, but there are risks inherent in freedom. And I think a lot of the right would agree with that, especially given the Second Amendment that we have that protects our right to bear arms. What I find interesting is that the exact same argument applies to immigration. There's no constitutional authority for the government to regulate it, right? So that's the first thing. So if they're doing that, they're violating the Constitution. Secondly, the benefits far outweigh the costs. But yes, there are risks of people coming into the country that'll do bad things. The same thing applies, for instance, to driving an automobile. We know that thousands of people die every year in automobile accidents, but we're willing to risk it because of the benefits we get from the automobile. And that's kind of what drives me crazy in our world, is the lack of consistency of people who will make one argument go this way and then not understand that the same exact principle applies somewhere else that they're just not willing to grant.
So Catherine McKenzie says the other half of that Second Amendment thing he said was, from what I understand, is that teachers should be armed at schools to better protect children. Now, look, again, from my perspective as a capitalist, as a freedom absolutist, as a rights absolutist, that definitely could be on the table, but that depends on the school. If schools were privatized and offered that service and allowed that to be a part of working for that group, then yes, that would be, you would know it in advance. You would consider it an advantage for your children to be in a school that could fully protect your child while they're there, so that you could feel safe. But if you did not like that, if you thought that was an inappropriate response to some of the maniacs out there that can procure guns through illegal ways or steal them from people who have them, legally, and then commit mass murder in these places. If you don't think that's a solution in a privatized world, there would be other options for you. And whether that means armed security or the way they do it in Israel, where they have certain exit points and entrance points, and there's no other way for anybody to get in or out, so that anybody who's coming in with the intent to harm is bottlenecked into a place where they can really be cut off before they do any harm to somebody. This is Jason Adams, Objectivist Matters. Theodore Teabag Bagwell, Robert, is that Nepper?
Yeah.
Was in
I just want to see if you know the reference, because I watched every episode of this show. I want to know if you know what show it is. It lightened things up a minute.
No, I don't. What is that?
I think you might even have been on. Were you ever on Prison Break?
No, fuck. Yes, I was.
That's the show.
Okay.
Teabag, Prison Break. Interesting. Well, no, I didn't mean to do that. I'm trying to take this off now. Okay. Interesting. If you watch the show, one of the ways they got out of the cell was they detached the sink and toilet from the wall. But behind it, there were not all the pipes and everything that would have to be connected. It was just a hole in the wall. Not very good. Decent show. I used to enjoy watching it. Very, very far-fetched.
Okay, I read the pilot, hated it. One of the main guys in Prison Break was a student of mine, Wentworth Miller. Still hated it.
He was a student of yours?
Yeah, he was a student.
Come on.
Yeah, he was a student of mine.
He was just I just saw him. I didn't see him somewhere on a rerun of House the other night that I was watching. He was he was on it. I never knew he was a student of yours. That's very interesting to me.
Yes. Greg Lewis, the Constitution is a piece of paper. If the words are not embodied in the spirit of those it governs, that's correct. It needs to be embodied in the spirit of those who governed. That means that the people governing have to accept certain moral principles as absolutes, and then they would follow the Constitution as a guide because they have certain moral principles as absolutes. And I think that's probably one of the articles we should probably get to at some point, Michael, before the end. But I wanted to read this thing from the Morning Dispatch. Susan Monarez, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name right, head of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, who was confirmed by the Senate in late July and removed in late August, testified before the Senate on Wednesday, claiming that Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. asked her to pre-commit to approving changes in vaccine recommendations before seeing scientific evidence. No.
Now, somebody claimed, I guess, that there was a recording and that didn't happen. It seems, I don't know, then it turned out the recording didn't exist. I don't know. But, you know, these people, I don't really trust any of them, so I don't know if this happened, but it wouldn't surprise me, right? And I think that the takeaway for me is these people shouldn't be in charge of anything, right? We don't need a CDC. Let's get rid of these alphabet agencies. That's my.
We don't need an NIH. We don't need a CDC. We don't need an EPA. We don't need the FCC. You can literally. I mean, I haven't even been thinking about the CIA, Michael. I mean, the CIA was a creature of the Cold War. It came out as a result of facing this new challenge of espionage from growing communism. It was growing through subterfuge and undermining other governments around the world. And the real fear was that they were going to take over the entire world. And they needed this intelligence agency. At first, it was supposed to be gathering information, and then it became about covert operations, and then paramilitary, and then yada, 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 yada. Before that time, we gathered intelligence through an organization called G2, and the Army had its own military intelligence, and they did military intelligence during time of war, and they left it alone when we were not fighting. And there was a considerable amount of controversy about the CIA being disbanded after the war, but it was, of course, pushed forward because of the new threat of the Soviet Union. But I would not be averse to disbanding the CIA and using those law enforcement personnel to certainly fight terrorism, but their capacity, which was supposed to be directed at foreign governments, which was supposed to be giving us intelligence with respect to enemies of the state outside of us, are now being used to spy on domestic on people within our own country, which I think is a terrible, terrible, terrible precedent that's been set. And it's made that company, that organization, far more powerful than it should be. So it says further in here, Monarez, testifying alongside Dr. Deborah Horry, the CDC's former chief medical officer who resigned in August, also said that Kennedy had told her that the CDC is the most corrupt federal agency in the world. Come on. It's certainly corrupt, but the most corrupt? I mean, there's got to be 150 of them that are competing for the most corrupt. They're all corrupt. The concept of a federal regulatory agency or a politicized science is itself corrupt. I don't care if there's people out there that says, well, they fund all this scientific research. Yeah, unfortunately, they've pitted themselves in such a condition that they are everywhere. Now, they don't have to be everywhere, and scientific research can still be funded. Let's not forget they also politicize science and make it impossible to know the truth in some areas. One being COVID, for example, which became a hugely politicized disease, as AIDS became a politicized disease, as climate change has become a politicized science now, so that it's impossible to get at the truth. All you do is you have to try to thread through all the information and even as a layman, find what makes the most rational sense to you. Politicized science is not science, folks. It's the veneer of silence to pass a political agenda along with the authority of science behind it. And that's scary, folks. We don't want that. She said, going to tell her the most corrupt federal agency in the world, and the CDC employees were killing children and they don't care. Several Republicans on the committee criticized Monarez, including Senators Rand Paul and Roger Marshall, who questioned various vaccine recommendations and mandates. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, a Republican from Oklahoma, claimed Monarez was lying about the conversation with Kennedy and led her to her firing based on tapes of the conversation before, retracting this accusation while saying that he had been mistaken about the existence of such tapes. Speaking of these hearings, did you see Kash Patel in front of
yeah,
congressional hearing?
I saw. I mean, I didn't watch the whole. I think it was 5 hours, but I saw some clips of it. Yeah, what specifically do you mean?
Oh, him taking it to Adam Schiff and taking it to the Democrats. I mean, he really look at these hearings, folks. I've seen some great people in front of these hearings, great people like Alex Epstein, who was able to just run circles around these people. But something became very clear to me, Michael, and maybe it should have been clear to me long before I saw Alex Epstein testify before these committees. It's not about fact-finding. It's not about the truth. It's not about any of that. What it's about are egomaniacal politicians, narcissistic tweakers, getting their 5 minutes of fame to get up there and make proclamations. They don't give a shit about what's real and what isn't. All they care about is staking their claim, giving red meat to their constituency, and having their 5 minutes of fame. That is it. And the one thing I liked about Kash Patel, and I'm not a fan of Kash Patel, I don't like what the FBI is doing. I don't like any of that stuff. But one thing I liked about it is he sort of did what Howard Hughes did. He called them out and shut them up. You know, look, folks, at the base of it, the personality who wants power over other human beings is a complete and total pussy. I don't care how strong they act, how much chest pounding they do. This is why, Michael, I attack these guys from the ACP, by the way. Guys like Haz al-Din, who has guns on his wall, and he poses with automatic weapons by his side, and he's always got to look like he's constipated, you know, because he's supposed to be a tough guy. It's like, you're the biggest pussy on the planet, dude. You know why? Because you need power over people, and anybody who needs power over people is a pussy. And you should have seen these guys all cow when Kash Patel fought back, a little pushback against these bullies, and they crumble like the fucking empty idiots they are. And there was a part of me, I have to say, that enjoyed it, because Adam Schiff is a grifter. He's a total shyster, a complete and total fraud. Some of the other people he attacked were the same.
Ian Gilmore begs to differ with you. He says that Kash Patel was being correctly criticized, and he deflected and yelled to get away from it.
Well, he may have been correctly criticized, but this is me satisfying something emotional in me, my friend. Because Adam Schiff is a big fat fucking liar.
He is. He's
He
a
is
jerk.
one of the most despicable human beings in Washington. And to see that despicable, disgusting person get put in his place was a very happy thing for me. But Kash deserves to be called out on the mat for sure, as does the FBI. The FBI has deserved to be called out on the mat for a very.
The clip that I saw had to do with Eric Swalwell.
Yeah, I saw the Swalwell one too, and he's got it coming too, because that guy's a ridiculous.
Well, he's a jerk, but Kash didn't answer the question. The question was, did he tell Pam Bondi that Trump was in the Epstein files? And Kash would not answer that question.
Of course he's not. He's protecting his chief. And Elon Musk said he was. So I'm going to presume that they've got something to hide because they have been deflecting. Look, Michael,
I got to show you this. Manu has the take of the day. This is awesome.
Go ahead.
Mark looks and sounds like he just woke up with this great hair, but he had a bad dream and is now going off passionately.
Yeah, the bad dream is watching the news. Thank you, Manu. Now I forgot what I was going to say. Where was I going before you interrupted me with Manu's comment?
I don't know, but it's not shouldn't be too difficult to figure out. I mean, you've got the articles.
Wait, Swalwell. Oh yeah, look, you cannot help but think something fishy is going on with the Epstein files. When they put somebody from the Department of Justice, they interview her, Maxwell, right, for several hours, which they claim to have released all of the information about that. Who knows? And then they give her a cush new prison cell, or they put her in a whole new prison that's not even really a prison. It's more like a vacation. So you got to feel like there's a quid pro quo going on between these folks for her to say, no, I don't know anything about Trump being in this thing, when he probably was. Because one thing we know about Trump is he does not tell the truth. He lies with ease, and he's definitely not afraid to use the levers of power to his own personal benefit and for his own personal gain, as we've seen with his $16 million settlements here. Now he's probably going to get a settlement from the New York Times with his planes from Qatar. I mean, this guy is a shameless individual. Bad dream is the current state of our country. Yes, I agree. We are in sort of a bad dream mode. The Guardian. Now, I'm not a fan of The Guardian normally, but sometimes they expose things. The Guardian reminds me of the English Haaretz. I don't know if you ever read anything from Haaretz. The Haaretz is
Isn't that from Israel?
Israel. It's an anti-Israel journal in Israel.
You said England. You said England's Haaretz.
I said the Guardian the Guardian is England's Haaretz. Yes.
Oh, you're saying it's England's version of Haaretz.
Yes, it's England's version of Haaretz.
Does anybody else think that Mark kind of looks like the crazy old man that's yelling at the kids to get the ball off the lawn?
So anyway, the Guardian said on Wednesday that the Trump administration cut back on executive branch programs aimed at reducing child sexual exploitation and human trafficking. Agents at the Department of Homeland Security, formerly tasked with investigating trafficking, have been moved to deportation operations, according to a report, while personnel at State Department office who monitor human trafficking had been reduced by 70%. Meanwhile, a report on U.S. and global trafficking required by law to be provided to Congress by June 30th has yet to be released. A White House spokesperson called the investigation total nonsense. So they apparently are removing human trafficking is a huge conservative issue. You'd think that they wouldn't take personnel off of human trafficking, and then
is it really though?
Well, they claim. No, who knows what is real with the new conservative movement? But they claim human trafficking is a thing, and they claim actually deporting some of these people is partly because they are engaging in human trafficking. Right, that Garcia guy who's now being deported to some tiny republic in Africa was apparently one of his major crimes aside from being a member of what was it? Was it one of these gangs? MS-13, I think it was. One of his major crimes was human trafficking, which could be anything, folks, from actually trafficking in the slave trade to bringing people from a bad place to a better place. And because it's illegal, it's called human trafficking. Anyway, man, that just another thing to be relatively, I don't know.
Connected to that, I think, with their obsession with immigration is there's another article I sent you where it said 80% of drug traffickers or convictions in America for drug trafficking are American citizens.
Of course.
So American citizens are far more likely to be peddling dope than are the immigrants. And it makes sense because the American citizens can come in and out with far less scrutiny. So that's whom they recruit.
Of course. And there, of course, some of the immigrants who do engage in that stuff are prohibited from working. I mean, they come into the country if they're waiting, they're in asylum status, they're waiting for the government to hear their case, and in that time, they are not allowed to work. And so, what the hell is a man supposed to do? Right? You sent me an article from Fusion. I'm not encouraging anybody to go into the drug trade, by the way. I'm just saying that in some cases, if immigrants engage in it, in some cases, it's because the government, once again, has made it impossible for them to do anything else. You sent me an article from Fusion. To fix politics, think about what comes before politics. We have discussed this issue multiple times, so talk about it a little bit. What comes before politics?
Well, politics is based on philosophy, right? Ultimately, it comes down to a view of ethics is what political systems are based on. And I thought that the article was good. I didn't like that it cited Pope Heinrich or whatever the hell his name was. What was it? Ratzinger? It was his cardinal name. I don't remember his Pope name.
Yeah. Because he put right squarely. He said, but he's not wrong in that the notion of rights and the dignity of man did come from religious origins, but now we understand.
The ancient Greeks had some notions, not strong. The Stoics also had some notions of natural law. True, the Stoics also believed in a higher power, but not the higher power of Christianity. So kind of he's right, but I just don't think that yes, Benedict. I don't know, and I don't think ultimately that you can base rights on religion because the religion is ultimately going to supersede the idea of rights. And it also has the virtue, a secular view of rights. Ayn Rand's view of rights has the virtue of being true, whereas the religious view of rights, of course, is based on fiction.
It has the virtue of being reducible to observable reality.
Right. But ultimately, I think that the gist of the article is correct. You do need to have a sound philosophy to back a government. And I think that we are woefully lacking in sound philosophical principles in this country at the moment and, throughout the world, really. But
Michael, I hear there is a political party that is based on sound philosophical principles.
Come on.
Yeah, no, I did. I heard this. It's I think it's a rumor, but I think if you go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, you will probably find some very sound philosophical principles upon which to base a political ideology.
And we are not affiliated with them at this show.
We're not affiliated with them, but we can plug them because we do agree with their policies. I think it's time for the capitalist law of the day, and that's
it is. But I've re-implemented something yesterday, and I put it forth yesterday. Today, you're going to do it. Is to ask that we need the people. We need them to like. We need them to share from YouTube. We need them to subscribe, and we need them to go and make comments on YouTube. So what I did yesterday was threw a question out to them to get them to go. So today, you're going to do both the capitalist thought of the day and formulate a question for them.
Oh wow! You're going to force me to formulate a question. I don't know if I can do that, but I want to say something that Ariana says here first, Where I live, the reps want to make housing undocumented immigrants a human trafficking charge. Well, there you go, folks. So rights out the window once again, because the Republicans are, of course, nationalists, anti-immigrationists, and dead wrong on that issue. And if you go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, you'll be able to see why that is so, why the freedom of movement from one place to another is a right, folks. It is a right, provided you don't have a communicable disease and you're not a violent human being, but you simply want to work and be a contributing member of a community. You want to build values for yourself. You want to build a life constructively. Nobody should stop you from doing that. So, folks, today we've seen a lot of federal interference with, I think, the foundation stone of a free society, which is free speech. Leonard Peikoff once said that the time to take up arms against the government is when there is no more free speech. Now, why would that be the time? Well, folks, you need information in order to make appropriate judgments. You need information in order to innovate, in order to thrive. The more information you have, the better. Bad information needs to be countered by good information. It doesn't need to be countered by bans. It needs to be countered by good information, which you have the choice to imbibe. So we need to preserve the First Amendment, which means taking the FCC out of business and making it a dinosaur relic of a political age that should no longer exist in a civilized world. And that is an age that believes that the state has the power over the individual and dispenses privileges. In a capitalist society, you are a sovereign being. That means you are in total control of your own life. Now, with that comes the responsibility to take control of your life. Nobody is under any obligation to help you. The only thing that you can do if you are in trouble is appeal to someone else to help you. That is what a free society is like, and those are the dangers of a free society. You're on your own. You're on your own, but it's far preferable to a government that pretends to protect you, but it's really taking your rights away and stealing your moral agency and degrading you as a human being in the process. And so what was the thing I have to do? I have to pose a question out there for people?
Yes. And they have to go and answer it on the YouTube thing.
Okay, and so you have to go and answer this question on the YouTube thing. Does it have to be political? It can be anything?
Well, you're complicating this way too much. You can ask whatever you want.
I could? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, folks, do you prefer dogs or cats? Answer the question, please, on our YouTube channel. Do you prefer dogs or cats, or are they equally interesting to you, but for different reasons? So there's a third option there too. And here's I'll do two questions. Who makes the best videos, cats or dogs? And when you're trolling through YouTube for pet videos, do you watch dog videos or cat videos? Let us know. Please like or subscribe to this station. Please share it from YouTube. Please answer these questions because I'm dying to know. Because sometimes I go down the rabbit hole with dog and cat videos and it's nuts. There's also a spider monkey named Kiki that I'm addicted to.
Oh my God.
She has a relationship with an American bulldog that is fucking insane. It's beautiful.
You have to send them to the merch.
Also, folks, we have merch for Capitalist Corner. Their merch is great. I recommend it. Now, do we have a link to it that they could go to, or do they go to the Capitalist Party website? You will find the link there, probably buried in the Capitalist Party website. You can have merch, folks, that advertises capitalism, but from a fun point of view. I think you're going to like all the stuff that Persephone has come up with. It's pretty great. Anyway, folks, we are way over time. We're 5 minutes over time. So look, you've got 23 hours to think about your premises. If you have statism in you at all, if you have mysticism in you at all, I encourage you to check your premises. You have 23 hours to come back here. And if you haven't thought your way out of those yet, then come to us with your questions tomorrow, and we will try to answer them because tomorrow is Q&A day. Until that time, folks, peace.